Live tonight for the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. LSR TV is happy to say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to round number 11 of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. We're tonight from NASCAR's backyard. We go racing on this Memorial Day. We're so happy that you're with us on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Sports Network. We're alongside myself, Evan Pasoko. I'm joined as always by Justin Prince. Downstairs is our producer, Brett Wheeler, bringing us to you. And Justin, we come off of 2 straight weeks. No points race. It had been a little bit of a mid-season break, of course. For those who tuned in with us last Monday night, they saw some great all-star action from right here at Charlotte. But of course, now as we get set for, as I mentioned, the 11th race of the season, we mark the 1/3 point of the year and the halfway point of the regular season.
Yes, indeed. This is to the point of the season where a lot of teams and drivers have to start getting towards a rhythm in the points, because if they don't start moving now, it's going to be very difficult to even be in the top 16 to try and punch your ticket into the playoffs. But this is also going to be a much different race than what we've seen with the All-Star race. For one, much longer, 150 total laps. 50% of the race likely to be in daytime, 50% in the nighttime. But as well, this is a race that's going to end off what will be a wonderful Memorial Day weekend to remember the fallen, remember the lost, and those that have fought for the freedom in the United States of America this evening.
We will certainly see a few special paint schemes out there on the racetrack this evening, so we'll make sure to point those out as the night goes on. What you're looking at right now is the very tail end of qualifying. The 10-minute qualifying session wrapping up here in less than 60 seconds. Most drivers get that lap time out of the way early, though. These final 5 minutes are reserved for the drivers' meeting, and race control is just going over some last-minute rules and procedures with them. But it is going to be a 30-plus car count. You mentioned 150 laps. It is the longest race for us of this 2019 campaign, and it comes on the heels of Connor Horn's win in the All-Star race last week. Still looking for his first official points win in this series, and if last week was indication, and if the qualifying session, which just wrapped up, was also any indication, Connor Horn may have a very good opportunity to make some noise here tonight as we start with the sun setting behind the grandstands and we go racing late into the night, where the lights will come on and we will crown our 11th different race winner, maybe. We'll see how it plays out of this 2019 campaign. That being said, our qualifying session is drawn to a close, so let's go trackside and take a look at your LSR TV starting grid for tonight's Charlotte 225. It is going to be no shock here. Andrew Farinar's on pole position, just barely by 2/1000ths of a second. He beats out Connor Horn for the top spot, so it'll be the 88 in control and the 24 car on the outside of the front row for second position. Behind them, Jason Jacoby starts in the number 3 position. Shane Parrish will roll from 4th, with Rhett McBride rounding out our top 5.
Anthony Fredericks will be running a special paint scheme tonight in P number 6. Then in row number 4, it's a newcomer starting in 7th, Blake O'Connell, who's coming from the Outlaw Series for RealSimRacing. He'll start alongside Tom Novosad. Rounding out the top 10 is Skylar Shackelford and one of his teammates, Jeremy E. Miller.
Veteran Thomas J. George finds himself on the inside of row 6. It'll be P11 for the number 9 Chevrolet. Eric Stanford there also in the number 12 spot. Andrew T. Jones starting 13th tonight. John Fowler will roll from 14th. In the 51, Scott McClendon ends up in P15.
In 16th position, Jeremy Redenberg will line up on the outside line. Well, back in 17th and 18th, it's Kyle Kammer, who had some good runs in the All-Star race, alongside Scott Brotherton, rounding out the top 20, Tom Morano and Brian Chambliss.
2 more cars still that actually got a time down in qualifying. They're still only about 1/10 off of the top spots, but 21st for Nick Caldwell, and Brad Bohr ends up in 22nd. Kayla Weekly's 23rd, Kurt Rittenberg is 24th. It'll be provisionals from this point on back, started by Dylan Jones, highest pre-qualified driver, in 25th.
Also in towards those positions, David Washington, Brian Lambert, Matt Miller. Brian Macklin will be up in race control. Jonathan Cattell not expected to make a start tonight due to taking care of family matters with his children. Sometimes it's on top of fighting for freedom that we remember, of course, there's things more important than racing. Of course, having things such as family, also very important to take care of for tonight.
And that is a look continuing through. Brian Macklin, Brian Lambert, and Matt Miller. 29 cars all the way through, actually, that look like they are going to be able to roll off for this one. So a pretty healthy field size, I guess we should say, for rounding out the Memorial Day and the long weekend. And some drivers still unable to join us tonight. No worries. We look for them to join us when we return in 1 week's time, because we got a couple of weeks of back-to-back action here next week at Pocono and the following week at Michigan, June the 3rd and the 10th. All of those Monday nights, 9 Eastern starts right here on LSR TV, streaming on the iRacing Esports Network. But the lights are off on top of the pace car, and we get set to go racing for 150 laps around the Charlotte Motor Speedway, longest race of the 2019 campaign, but it is still not a 5-hour race like if you were tuned in last night for the Coke 600. So a little bit of extra opportunity for these drivers to work through the field, play some strategy, but it is a healthy race distance nonetheless. The pace car going to dive down to the safety of the pit lane, and Andrew Fernandez looks to get the second half of the regular season kicked off in a dominating fashion, as which he has run every week thus far. Green flag in the air. We're off for round 11 racing at Charlotte.
And a good start, it looks like, for those top 3 positions once more. One of the things mentioned, though, you got to remember by Horn was one of the things that helped me get that victory in the All-Star race for him, he said, not having Fernandez in the field. That's going to make it much more difficult. That's going to be a tough move to pull off for Jacoby.
Jacoby way down and onto the flat. It is not a yellow line, so technically you could go down to the inside. The 3 car, though, backs out of it, and if anything, it's going to cost him positions because he had to be way out of the throttle to be able to make that corner there down on the low. So he's going to drop from 3rd back into 9th spot as Fernandez leads through lap 1, and Connor Horn tries to hold off to 5. That's Rhett McBride.
And one of the things that was very difficult at the start of the broadcast, at the start of the race, I should say, and as these restarts we'll see tonight, is keeping that lead. We've seen it with the rear wheel race. We've seen it at the peak race. That's exactly why. There's so many opportunities for drivers to get underneath you and have moves like that.
You can see right to the race lead, Connor Horn with an early opportunity. Again, you want to certainly take advantage of those fresh tires. Well, the sun is still out.
Trouble in the back. Jacoby's in the wall.
In it.
And Jacoby's spinning down the backstretch.
Caution is out. He's backwards all on his own. The 3 of Jason Jacoby, not a start that he would have wanted, and it does bring out a yellow flag. We'll take a look at the LSR TV replay. Just looks like an ill-timed move by the 3 car after he again had to recover from that dive down to the inside, and it just looks like Justin at the 18 was slow. The 3 tried to squeak by high side, just didn't go high enough, and kind of drove into the back of him, bounced down, and across the nose of Andrew T. Jones, he finds the inside wall.
It's not only that, he actually hit the back end of Parrish. That's why he went so high up on the outside groove. But we've seen that a couple of times. If you lose the air off the nose or get air pushed towards that nose, it can just slam you up into the outside wall. That's what happened with Jacoby. Ran out of space, pinball down the racetrack, collects a couple of errors, a couple of different error cards for damage, unfortunately, and severe damage now for Jacoby. He might not be able to compete for a victory now with significant damage because, as we've seen throughout the entire week, if you're across the service, you get damage like that aerodynamically on this package, your speed is killed in that car, and your ability to suck up is gone.
And he is done. Yeah, takes the responsibility for the caution flag, but a damaged race car and a blown opportunity for Jason Jacoby, who started on against Auto Row 2 and said that car is on the hook and headed to the garage no more than 5 laps in to this Charlotte 225. Pit lane open, though, and all your race leaders want to come in despite the very short run to the end. The 24 of Connor Horn is the first car into the box. He'll go right side tires. He'll stay in to go left side tires as well and look for the race off of the pit lane. Led in by the 24 and led off by Connor Horn. No challenge there. However, because it was such a short run, not everybody in agreement that pit stops were necessary early on. You've got a little bit more than I think a half a dozen cars that stayed out.
Yeah, 6 in total stayed out, trying to gain track position. But one of the major things, even seeing the Coke 600, was if you did not have fresh tires on your car, you would go backwards. I think this is a play for these drivers, hoping that there's maybe a quick yellow, or hoping that the 3-lap difference isn't that major in terms of the green flag run of the tires. But it's going to be extremely difficult for these cars to hold on to these positions because, as we've seen in the All-Star race, about lap 9 is where drivers are going to have to start going towards the high line or starting to get out of full throttle in the corners and maybe even start dragging the brakes to get down to the blue line to gain time to position themselves for passes. That's going to hurt them big time.
So it looks like it is, as you noted, Brett McBride out there, Fredericks, George and company, Connor Horn in the number 24 machine. Will get his exact updated running position when he comes by the start-finish line this time as Kyle Kamer, who had stayed out, dives down to pit road. So the magic number is going to sit at 5. McBride, Fredericks, George, Novosad, and Morano all out and in front of your race leader at that time, Connor Horn. McBride from 5th. Fredericks from 6th, George from 11th, Novosad 8th, and Tom Morano, actually the driver who I think this move makes the most sense for, going 19th to 5th position. So, tires, no doubt going to be important, and it was the note that I was kind of making there as we had found that, Jacoby got up and into the outside wall, and that is just that when there's heat in the racetrack still, and this is going to be true when we get racing under the lights, don't make any mistake, but especially now, the way that these tires go, and with this package, you want to be up and on the gas all the way around for as many laps as you can early. That's the time to make the moves. So Connor Horn, that aggressive dive to the inside, timed it very well, was able to get in there and take the race lead away. It'll queue him up for P5 here, and we'll see if 3-lap difference on fresh tires is going to be enough for him to get back up front quick, or if some of these cars who stayed out are going to have an opportunity to really hold on here for a good bit.
I'm curious to see how this works out, but again, I think we might see a lot of the drivers able to pass on by fairly quickly, because the first 10 laps, that's where it's very noticeable when you have that, especially in green flags that run situations with the 3-lap difference on tires. It's about even for about lap 15-ish onward towards the end of the runs for these cars. So this might work out for Morano for sure for track position. I'm curious to that. But I think a lot of these guys are going to have to really be hard and really have to try and defend to keep their track position. 5 total cars on old tires. We do have one that did take 2 tires, interestingly enough. It was the 2 of Nicholas Caldwell to gain 9 spots and get into 13th-ish.
He jumps up 21st to 13th. The other thing is, certainly after 10, 15 laps, I don't think that 3-lap difference on tires is going to be big. So
yeah,
if our fresh tire cars are going to make the moves, it's going to have to come early. And in the battle for the cars under 4 tires, Connor Horn, who was first off of the pit lane, because we saw one more car dive down to the pit lane, Justin, Horn's going to be outside of row 3 and 6th. Frenar is going to be inside row 4 and 7th. Depending on which lane gets going better, it could be interesting to see if actually having beat Frenar's off the pit lane hurts Connor Horn, depending on if the outside gets up and gets going.
Yeah, honestly, I think the bottom line is the preferred line from what we've seen this week on the service and for this package, but in part because it seems like they're better to get going. The thing is, though, it all depends really on that 3rd row on back. There's been some major checkups. We've seen that in the All-Star race from guys that were in the 3rd row on the bottom line. I think for Frenars, he's going to have to hope that checkup doesn't happen this time.
Race car down and in. Brett McBride's going to dictate when we go green, and we are back underway. 7 laps complete from Charlotte Motor Speedway, and it is a good jump down low. Fredericks dive to the inside to the 4 car, defends 2nd. It's George 3rd, side by side, P4 behind them. Here comes Connor Horn, fresh tires for the 24.
And like I said, there was around row 3 we've seen multiple times where drivers weren't able to get going on that bottom line. That could be the weak spot, despite it being the preferred line for the restarts. And that really lost a couple different spots for Frenars. Already able to gain one back on Blake O'Connell, but that killed his momentum. The difference in speed already, though, 0.3 of a second just off the opening gun for Horn compared to the top 3.
very quickly to making moves. He was able to go around on the inside for Todd Novosad. That got him up to P4. Meanwhile, behind him, he's been able to get some space. Andrew Fredar's just now fighting for 6th. He'll get it for the 42 car, but Connor Horn, he'll look to the outside. It's a battle of stars and stripes for 2nd and 3rd. Fredericks fighting with George, but both of them may watch the 24 go on by. The Speedway Chevrolet has got the preferred line, and he's got the momentum at a turn 2.
As long as you can get towards that right rear corner panel, you can just zip on by exactly like we've seen with Horn. I think right now, those fresh tires are really helping, and again, we've seen it before in real life, we're seeing it again here. If you take fresh tires, you can get moving. Horn for the race lead.
And he's going to go to the outside again. Rhett McBride holds the inside line, door to door for the number 1 position. This is about when that tire advantage is going to start to slip away. Outside, he'll use the 24 degrees of banking to his advantage. And man, did he make that one look so easy. Just like that, Connor Horn regains the race lead, charges from P6 up front in no more than 3 laps off for the restart. And he's got a buffer. Fredar's is coming. The 88 car there also sporting a patriotic paint scheme. He'll choose the inside to go down on the Donna George. It's a fight for 4th and 5th position, but the clean air is going to allow Horn to get a buffer here as Fredar's, Shackelford, and the rest of the 4-tired cars stuck in traffic.
And that's going to actually help out Horn if he's able to see that 88 still stuck in traffic for longer, because you can take advantage of the clean air if you're able to pull away. It is harder, of course, with the aero ducts. You'll see with Rhett McBride reeling backing down the straightaways. But if you're able to get some good corner speed with the fresh tires and pull away from the other cars on the older tires in these next few laps and be able to get a buffer away from everyone else, it might be very difficult to try and catch him, let alone try and pass them once we get a long run and once dirty air comes into play.
You still see this side-by-side fight is inside of the top 10. Tom Moreno, by the way, the 42's really been struggling. He continues to drop backwards on the outside line, but it is a fight for 3rd place on back, where George continues to hold the bottom. The 88 car of Fredar's on the inside with him, and when the 9 clears, he slides up. The 4 car now into the outside wall. Anthony Fredericks is out of control. He's into the outside wall, and a big wreck in turn number 3. Caution flag is out once again, and that one went way out of control real fast for the driver of the 4.
And that was a 4-car incident, unfortunately. It looked like there with Fredericks. He was trying to give a bump draft that time to George down the straightaway, but he just, I think, just had a bit of a brain fade. Tried to follow him, ended up losing a bit of the handling and actually bumped into the wall. That's what pinballed him around and ends up getting ran over from behind trying to save it. There's not enough time, of course, to try and get out of the gas for that kind of a situation. Ends up causing a big incident. At least 4 drivers, as mentioned, make it 5 that get some type of damage from that. Unfortunately, Shackelford got the worst of it.
And it was a good incident avoidance by the 88 machine, because Fredar saw him start to tiptoe down, and the replay showed that he dived low, so there was never contact there. But it was just a matter of the 4 car being so tight up on the bumper of the car in front of him that he just didn't see where he was going. He ended up into the outside wall, ended up into the inside wall. And after all of that, that car is done for a good bit of time, heavy damage, and he has taken the virtual tow down to the pit lane. We will see if that car ever returns to the racetrack tonight. A tough break, Anthony Fredericks, one of the drivers who was doing a very good job early on in his night, now all of a sudden done. Race leaders, though, down to the pit lane. Pit stops at action. The 24 of Connor Horn once again, the first car in and out, and he showed that even on as little as a 3-lap green flag run, you want 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles and fuel, so he'll take the same strategy this time, winning the race off for the pit lane once more. It'll cue him up for 2nd position, Kyle Kamer, the lone driver to stay out. I would expect, though, the SK Sim Racing Chevy to pit before the restart.
And on top of that, Jones, I think, missed his box. He didn't even attempt to stop and moved up to 3rd while doing so. So I'm curious to see if Heaktron comes down, because he's got damage from that last caution flag across that front bumper. Wouldn't be surprised to see a couple more drivers move up a few spots if he comes back in. But man, oh man, it's already been an interesting start to this one. And you hit it on the head a little bit in terms of how it could work out for some cars. It worked out a ton, I think, that strategy to gain 6 spots Morano in that stretch. And for a few other drivers, George up +5 on those old tires before that cycle.
Yeah, you might look at it and see that they weren't able to defend and maintain, first, second, third, or wherever it may be. But at the end of the day, if you don't fall down to below where you were before you made that move and it's a net gain, I think it's a good call. So if you're going to make a gamble early on, that may be the time to do so. So as expected as well, Kamer does come down to the pit lane. He did the same thing the first pit cycle through. So the lights are still on top of the pace car, but Connor Horn will end up back into control. And going to mix through all of this is the fact that Rhett McBride in the 5 has been able to get around Andrew Freenage. It'll be on the outside of the front row for the race start. The 88 still right there inside row 2 third. Don't count him out by any means, but good move for Rhett McBride, making some positions up early in the 5, who could very well, based on what we've seen with this short sample size, to make a run for this race.
Yeah, he had some good speed even on those older tires. His fastest pace, yes, is about 2/10 off, but that's because, well, the drivers he sandwiched between were the ones that were drafting off him and or trying to reel him back in, or he was dealing with the dirty air. So I think it's going to be curious to see if he can keep the spot. That's the thing, because you got 2 drivers that are going to be lined up along behind in front of one another on that inside line for the start. It's going to be hard to try and hold off a few of these cars for position because, as we've seen, drivers can be very aggressive towards that bottom blue line off of the restarts if it continues to build up like it is today.
Just looking through, should note that, we mentioned Jonathan Cannell was slated to roll from 30th position, wasn't able to get going, so 28 cars able to make the start this Monday night at the end of the long weekend, so always a big thanks to the drivers for being here with us for the 11th race of the season. Lights going to go out on the pace car restart due up, Justin, but I do want to talk real quickly about the point scenario coming into this evening. Andrew Freenage way out in front, 60 points ahead of the next closest competitor. But of course, the key is top 16 to get into the playoffs. We're halfway through the regular season as of tonight. And coming in, Scott Brotherton, last car in the top 16. So important that he has a good run. Right now scored 15th on the racetrack.
He's actually, in fact, on top of that, tied with Jeremy E. Miller, who's been really good with this package at Charlotte this past week or so, including the All-Star race. It's going to be very nerve-wracking. They need some luck together, especially, I think, Brotherton, because he's only had 1 top 10 this entire season so far. If you want to make a run for a championship, as talked about at the top of the broadcast, you have to start going right about now and gain some track position. He's in 15th, while as we talked about, Jeremy E. Miller, who started up toward this front before, actually got some damage in that last contact. He's off to 19th position.
The front row will consist of Horn, McBride. Back on row 2, it is Ferdinars and George. And Blake O'Connell in his full throttle debut. Races with us Tuesday nights in the trucks. They're in the number 5 position. A pace car down and through. It is going to be the first time Connor Horn gets to decide where do we go. A little bit of a later jump, but a green flag is out, and we are back underway. The 24 with a good 3-car length advantage to turn 1. And there is Freenage on the inside line, clearing the 5 of McBride.
And now this is where you start hugging that blue line, I think, and exactly what he needs to do here. Knowing it's very hard to keep the lead out of turn 3, have to play defensively. The thing is, though, he just has to make sure he doesn't get side-drafted by the 88 or get switched over. He's going to try it side by side at the stripe.
And he's there, makes the move to the outside, so they're going to go at it side by side for the race lead. The support comes from McBride, who will push Connor Horn and give him a huge push in the corner, essentially thrusting the 24 in front. And Horn's going to be able to hang on to the race lead. Nothing changes. Farinar still second, the 5 of McBride in third, and the 88 machine had a chance to go back up top that time in turn 3, didn't do it. Maybe trying to find a way open on the inside line as they single file it out.
It's going to still be hard to pass, even though it's, of course, early on in this run, because you can tell the way Horn's driving, he knows Freenarch is going to be very hard to defend. He's going to be trying to block as hard as he can, knowing that once the dirty air comes into effect, that once the drivers start running that middle line, it's going to be very difficult to make a move. He's going to have to fight as hard as he can, I think. We've seen it before. It's going to keep on going this way for a long while between this top three at least.
In fourth place, the number 9 of Thomas George. Don't count him out. The 67 of O'Connell right there as well on the doorstep as your top 5 trying to stretch this one out. I think it's the most separation we've seen top 10 so far this evening. First dance side by side sees the 48 of Brad Boer going at it with the 2 of Nicholas Caldwell. That's for 8th and 9th position.
Yeah, and that's going to hold them up a little bit. In terms of side-by-side battles or being stuck in dirty air with someone slower, it can be the difference of 3 to 2/10 a lap that you lose to the leader if you don't play your cards right. So if you know someone's going to potentially hold you up, you got to make a move. And that's what I think Caldwell decided to do. He's going to try and get on moving. He's got a fast race car and quickly gaining up to 7th.
Continues to gain positions, and now in the number 7 spot puts him in best position that he's been in a little bit after losing a little bit off of the get-go in this one. So no sad there as well. Trying to make the outside work. Look at the 12 car, Shackle 4. He comes sniping his way through and ends up behind the 2x2 battle in front of him. It appears that the 12 car agreeing that the outside is the lane to go. And I think as tires start to wear off, that the line is going to become that much more viable the deeper into the run we get.
And you're seeing it right there. I think that's where the light switch is starting to slowly go from off to on for that top line. Caldwell lost a lot of momentum off the corner. He tried to go up there and actually had to get out of the gas. That's why Shackelford was able to pull off that move to the inside line. So don't be surprised if you see the drivers that are currently in positions moving to that middle line if they're single file to try and defend their position and maybe keep the bottom open, knowing how difficult it can be on that blue line to make that move work.
All of this goes on, but the cars up front stay nice and orderly. Single file, the 2 had to lift. Caldwell lost a ton of speed off of the corner, and Brad Boer got into him and had nowhere to go. Those 2 cars made contact. Lucky none of them got turned around or too much out of shape. And I think the 48's going to maintain his track position as Scott Brotherton tries to go to the outside on him. But this is kind of that mid-pack calamity. There's tons of cars still here. Both Rittenbergs, Kurt and Jeremy run 12th and 13th. Fowler and Weekly, 14, 15. They're also side by side. And all of this going on within a half a second of the battle up by the 20 car.
As I mentioned, though, they're losing lots of time because of this side-by-side battling. They're in the 32s right now. The drivers that are all single file up in the next group of cars, they're still in the 28, 9, 8s at this point. That's how much you can lose side drafting one another and having to get out of the gas. That contact we've seen between Boer and Caldwell, that was caused by strictly trying to get out of the gas to make sure he didn't push up. Didn't have to do it this time to make sure he didn't make contact. They got to sort themselves out. And I think right now there's some frustration building with some of these cars maybe, because I feel like that if they're able to line up, they can try and find a way to get by Novosad. The thing is, though, they're going to need to get to his quarter panel on corner exit at a turn 2 to get the job done. That's very difficult already at this point, the way he's defending this outside.
And I think that the frustration is understandable. You're not normally used to being stuck around cars, in this much close quarters than you have been in the past compared to this 2019 rules package. It's just going to be difficult to get away. Even Novosad, who kind of leads this group. The inside's open. Here comes Brad Boer to the bottom of the racetrack. Caldwell and Rittenberg still side by side behind them. You're not just going to be able to complete a pass and run away like you would last year here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And again, the race format with the All-Star race being entirely, racing under the lights aside from the qualifiers and the heats last week. at the very short stage lengths and the smaller car count really didn't give those drivers that were able to compete a realistic look at what was going to be the complexion of the race for tonight's 225 race. So what they're doing now is experiencing this for the first time. Again, Charlotte a little bit different than some of the other intermediate tracks we've been to, and you don't get to race under the lights all that much. So this track, if you don't have a handle on it now, don't worry. It's only going to continue to change, and it'll keep you on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, it's going to get faster and faster. The colder the track temp drops, the more grip you're going to get. The thing is, though, it stayed fairly stern at about 86, 87 degrees as the cars have put rubber on the racetrack. So it's not dropping yet. Once the sun goes away, that's when it's going to start crashing, I think. And you can tell the frustration still building up. That move you're seeing from Bohr, however, that is the kind of move you have to make to get these passes done tonight if that top line is not open. You're going to have to send it very aggressively on the inside, try and park the bus on the outside line, and make that line stick without making contact to make the pass.
When he almost fenced the car, he got so down low, he was onto the apron, almost put it into the wall at a turn 2, lost him so much speed down the backstretch that the 20 was able to get to the inside line. So Brotherton now with a good opportunity to take the spot away, and he does it. So it is that risk versus reward. What are you willing to put on the line to take a spot? And it's not like one of those moves where you go for one spot, you lose a handful. He ends up exactly where he started, but Brad Bohr's going to have to try something else. And I think that 20 of Brotherton with a veteran move there saw how hard the 48 was pushing it, or the 48 was pushing it there, backed off. Let him drive that car real deep, was able to back up 1 and 2, get that run, and now he's got an opportunity to go back down to the preferred lane that he wants and maybe try to get a couple of car lengths of space now as we maybe for the first time see this group get a little bit of separation. Outside the top 10, though, still side by side, Kurt Rittenberg fighting with John Fowler, the 22 car on the outside line.
Yeah, and Rittenberg might actually be trapped down there with the way that line's working out. But I want you to keep an eye on what John Fowler just did right there. The other option to that slide job move is essentially what you're seeing there. Try and go for the crossover off the exit of turn 4. Use the top line as a ramp, and then use a bit of the run from the draft to get side by side to set up the pass into the entrance of turn number 1. It's a difficult move, a very difficult move with this package. You can still get that done. So it is still possible to pass a 1-0. It's just extremely difficult, as we've hit upon, to get the right run and move to do it. And then to try and take off and then make sure you secure that position without the driver you're trying to pass making it side by side once more to lose your momentum and side draft you.
You're going to have to be smart about it, too. You can't just go in there, you got a hot race car, a fast race car, throw it into the corner, make it stick, and even if it's not the best of exits, you'll be all right because you got the position. These things, again, with the lower horsepower, drives a lot more like what an Xfinity Series car would, and we tend to refer to the B and the C cars as much more momentum-based cars. I think that's a great analogy for the battle that we're still seeing outside the top 10 bit pack, where they look like they're doubled up off of the restart, except we've been green now for 20 laps plus from Charlotte. That it is momentum-based racing. You got to be smart with your exit because it directly impacts your exit. And you can see the 34 to Novosad, not that good that time off the corner, loses a spot to Brian Chambliss, who picks up his 6th spot off of the start of the race and has a front row seat to the battle that now sees the 51 of McClendon dueling with the 03 of Dylan C. Jones. Jones of the Aegis Ford, not somebody who's used to starting way back in the mid-20s, but it was the case tonight, and he's side by side there fighting for what is 12th.
Yeah, and you can see how much you can gain a little bit on that bottom line. It's, like I mentioned, the preferred line to catch up to drivers. It's just you want to be on that outside line. It looks like, however, he's kind of following what one of his teammates is trying to do. Who, of course, in Freenosh, where he tries to get to that blue line, drags the brakes if he has to make sure he's not going too fast to fall off said line, then be able to get 3/4 or full gas off the corner exit to be able to pick up pace. It was something seen, in fact, in the NIS races for the Coke 600. Just on Thursday night, for example, from Casey Kirwan and from the Peak Series. he was able to pull away because of that. The best drivers were the ones that were able to utilize that bottom line and take advantage of the drivers that weren't dragging brakes and losing time because they were pushing up the racetrack and burning their right front tires along the outside groove. That's what we're starting to see a little bit with some of these cars that are able to baby their tires a bit more because they're able to slow down and not chew up that right front and burn it up to heck. Contact, though, off of turn 4. Cameron's off into the grass. He's going to try and jump his way through the grass-drilled turf and able to save it. Here's the bright thing about that, though, for the number 8 machine. Yes, it's bad contact. The thing is, though, he was able to slow it down enough and able to save it enough to be able to not go jumping like we've seen with Casey Tucker. There is a caution, though, on the racetrack now. It's down the backstretch. And it's going to cause our, what is our third yellow flag of the night all of a sudden. So everything started to break out at once. That caution flag appears to be someone that was just pulling out of the race at that exact moment. It was Dylan C. Jones. So let's take a look at the replay here as Evan currently works on a couple of things. We'll be back in just a second. It looks like contact with Caldwell. Jones was working hard with that battle at that moment, where Dylan Jones was at one point trying the inside line. Knew that wasn't working to pass by Caldwell since he was getting fast. Went to his quarter panel. Caldwell was checking up again to make sure he didn't make contact. The thing is, he was losing. He was too fast. Just hit the left rear. Couldn't slam the brakes quick enough. Ends up knocking him into the inside wall and damaging Dylan C. Jones's race car. So the caution flag is out. We are 42 laps into a 150-lap race with 108 laps to go. We'll be back right after this here on the iRacing Esports Network for tonight's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome back, everyone, to LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network's coverage of the Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series here from beautiful Charlotte as the drivers get ready to get back under green. About 45 laps down, 150 total they had to conquer tonight. Here to end off a beautiful Memorial Day weekend in 2019, I'm Justin Prince. Evan Bazzoco will be back in just a few minutes. We apologize for the technical issues for Evan Bazzoco's part. But we have a new race leader after the pit cycle. After a faster pit stop by 0.6 of a second, Andrew Freenach is into the race lead and has the chance to hold on to clean air, passing by Connor Horn in the pit cycle. Up to third spot as well, Shane Parrish, Thomas J. George, and Rhett McBride in the top 5. The driver in the number 67 machine, a newcomer to the Cup Series, is someone that is making a statement for sure, though we've shown him a couple times tonight. Is someone that came from the Outlaws Series, which is the unpaid/unbroadcasted truck series that RealSimRacing runs Tuesday nights. He wanted to join the Cup Series and made his first start tonight. He was quick in practice, in fact. At one point, he was up in the top 5. He was also, of course, 7th fastest in qualifying. And before some of the other drivers came out, was the fastest on the board with about 3-4 minutes to go for the drivers to put in their fastest times for the starting grid. But now, it's time to try and see who will be the fastest drivers after the 1/4 point. 105 laps to go. Getting ready to go back underway in just a moment as Freenach is the control car on the inside line. And special paint scheme for the Flying Aces. As God bless the USA and God bless this race start. We're back underway racing and off to a big time jump of 3 car lengths. He was able to make the jump on Horn as well as Parrish. As Parrish tries to side draft on the left side, able to keep the inside line and move his way up to P number 2. Also losing time is O'Connell on the high side and forced to check back in. Surprisingly though, look who's in P number 7 off that restart. And is up to 6 after the good launch. It's Shackelford with his severe damage on that front nose, still able to reel in driver surprisingly despite the severe amount of damage. You see him on the outside line alongside Rhett McBride and trying to get by some of the Steel Horse Racing machines as a big time checkup by Parrish on the inside loses some momentum. And it looks like on that corner entry into turn 1, the reason he lost so much speed, he had to get out of the gas and thought he was going to push up maybe into Thomas J. George. That is something drivers experience throughout the week while trying to go full throttle, was pushing up into drivers. To the race lead though, Horn is trying to push his way on the outside line. Can he get the job done is the question. Side by side, Freenach got the lead lap last time by. Still side by side as Horn tries to come down. Will Freenach try and side draft? Yes, he will into the corner entry for 3. George and Shackelford launch along back. Horn, though, has the potential to launch off the corner. He retakes the race lead with 102 to go. And we hit on it before how difficult it was in Horn's opinion, I should rather say, to win over top the 88 machine. There's been many battles we've seen between those two drivers this season, where Horn was able to hold off Freenach for as much as 30-40 laps, in fact, in some cases, and ended up losing the lead while Freenach danced his way to 5-6 second advantages. He doesn't want to see the same thing happen tonight on a track he's been comfortable with. He was a 10th quicker last time by at the stripe, in fact, compared to your points leader. The top 4 have also been able to pull their way away. Let's take a look at what's happening in 5th position, because we talked about Parrish losing a lot of time on that bottom line a couple laps ago. Rhett McBride rim rides his way up to the top 5 once more. And it looks like Parrish is now dropping back from a good starting position and continues to go backward. It looks like he might actually be pushing tight in the apex of 1 and 2. And that's where a lot of the cars so far have been able to gain a bit of the time to make these sort of moves on that Serve Pro machine. He's going to give the inside line, it looks like. No. Able to come just in front of O'Connell to make the block, as he'll try and stop the bleeding at P number 6 on the racetrack. Under 100 laps to go here at Charlotte Motor Speedway here on Memorial Day weekend. Of course, a beautiful holiday. Lots of drivers with special paint schemes as we hit upon, and trying to honor those who have served and that have fallen, in honor of trying to fight for the freedom in the United States of America. And today, it's been a heck of a fight for some of these drivers. Brad Bohr has been one of the drivers that have been looking really strong, plus 15 amongst that second group. He was fighting very hard with that battle for position we've seen with guys like Caldwell amongst that mix. And now he's continuing to look even more stronger. He had some good speed, in fact, in the All-Star race, surprisingly, especially in stage number 2. You can see he's trying to just try and wait for that outside line to come into play. He also knows that the SK machine has a bit of damage on that right rear that could slow him down a slight touch. It is aerodynamic for the most part, doesn't affect that spoiler. The thing is, if you have damage at that part of the racetrack, or that part of the race car, if the quarter panel is folded in, it can affect your handling and make you looser off the corners on that right rear. And right now, it looks like he's trying to still defend very hard and aggressively trying to charge hard to the inside. Still defending is that position for the time being, but the top 4 have pulled away to now just about a full second away from 5th on back. Fastest lap, Thomas J. George with the 29.7 at the stripe. Still sticking with the battle on your screen, as you can see, Scott Brotherton. He's starting to get onto the gas pedal in his Wrangler Jeans machine, as the number 20 needing some big-time points. Up to 9th position, as high as he's run so far. And he'll have the chance to maybe reel in Bohr as he allows the inside line for O'Connell on the switchback. Scott Brotherton amongst the drivers on the track. Last time by, a 30.2 was his recorded time, pardon me, in terms of 30.1. Was his recorded time, 2/10 quicker than Bohr. It was around the same pace just about as the lead cars that are currently sitting in the top 6 positions on the racetrack. He'll have the chance to work with the number 45 of Brian Chambliss as he tries to go around him, in fact, as the Harambe Racing machine wants to make the move. Side by side they go. Can he try and pull off the slide job? No, he pushes up tight. He'll have to back out of the gas once more as the preferred line for Brotherton once more keeps the spot for the number 20. Again, as Evan Bazzocco talked about just about a couple caution flags ago, Brotherton and Jeremy Miller are tied in the points at the moment. In 16th position, 183 total. One, in fact, in front of Nicholas Caldwell. The top 16 drivers make the playoffs in this season, and they have to make sure they get the most points possible. Brotherton not wanting to sacrifice those, knowing out of those 3 cars, he's in the best position. If we were to finish with the checker flag now, he'll be able to pull away by at least 5+ points from both Miller as well as Caldwell. Miller is currently 14th. Caldwell is 19th after having to serve an end of longest line penalty and earning a caution point on the last caution flag. Again, your current top 5: Horn, Freenosh, George, Shackelford, McBride. But Parrish has all of a sudden found some speed. He's the fastest car on the racetrack the past couple laps by. In the 33s, the leader has dropped off to the 4s. On top of that, some of the side-by-side is continuing to warm up here. Let's bring in Evan Bazzocco as he's finished off his technical issues. Evan, it's been a heck of a race all of a sudden. 90 laps to go. For these drivers, though, there is still at least one more pit stop to make it on the fuel if we go green.
And all of that would be, of course, assuming that this race is going to stay green. And tens would tend to suggest no, but a battle right now that I've been watching for the last few laps, 9th position, side by side, Brad Bohr and Brian Chambliss going at it. The 45 is finally going to be able to punch his way through, take the spot. Actually cleared him into turn 1. I thought the 48 was going to fight back, but it is a completed pass. So Brian Chambliss gets on through. He now cracks into the single digits as he takes over the number 9 position. Again, no surprise, Justin, that this is kind of that mid mid-pack area where drivers are still fighting. Up front, a good bit of separation, but you still have, George and Shackelford very close for 3rd and 4th position. Behind them, McBride and Parrish aren't all that far apart, but the top two, Connor Horn, your race leader, and Andrew Friedrich chasing him. Those drivers are trying to run away with this one.
Yeah, and they're looking really good in terms of speed. However, looks like Horn is starting to lose a little bit of pace a couple different laps where he's having to try and defend. The thing that's going to make it hard, though, to lose said lead is that dirty air that I mentioned a couple different times, because it's so difficult, first off, to try and, again, pass on that bottom we've talked about a couple times. That high line, that preferred line to make a move, you can't just go up towards the Larson line and say, let's try and hold the gas pedal and go there. You can actually lose a tenth a corner if you try and make that move. That's why I think a lot of these drivers are trying to play it safe, knowing that if they push too hard or end up making a mistake, that opens up the door for, say, George to move to second, or Shackelford, despite that damage, to move up another spot. You just got to keep on going. Hope you can pressurize the driver in front of you into mistake, and just put yourself in position to try and battle for this race lead, because, again, if we go all the way to the end of the fuel run, that can make things interesting with the way the strategy works and the fall-off being as much as 2 seconds from fresh tires to old tires. That can really shake up drivers in the field.
Certainly, no doubt, and I think that, the longer as well we get into this run, drivers are going to start to experience things with race cars that they haven't quite felt yet. So when you get into that uncharted territory, you start to wonder, am I pushing the race car a little bit too fast? Am I pushing it too hard? How am I conserving my equipment? And obviously the end objective is to be able to make it through to the end of this one, but you still got 25 cars on the lead lap. A good battle for the race lead ongoing, and we're not even in the final run to the end of the race yet. In fact, that's in a couple more laps through, we will be to the halfway point in this race. So I don't think drivers need to be too concerned if they're not 100% where they want to be at the moment.
Exactly. While you want to, of course, be up towards the top 10, it's kind of, with this race especially, kind of an endurance race of sorts, where you're trying to position yourself for the checker flag. It was a 2-stopper as expected to come into today's race, Evan. And we're starting to see these drivers where, yes, you're losing tons of time. 2 things, though. If you have a caution, you're back into the ball game. The other thing, if you're able to, say, stretch out your run as long as you can to get fresh tires and gain by some of the slower drivers that you're losing time because of, that's going to be what can really put you over the top towards the end of this race and turn what is looking like a 20th place run into a top 10 run by the checker flag this evening.
This is the the portion in the race that we might not see all the moves as everybody gets spread out, and there isn't one big concentrated group of race cars on top of each other. But this is where you have to be good. And we made the point off at the top that 150 laps at Charlotte, it is our longest race of this 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series season, but it is not that long. I mean, these drivers are able to race themselves through over 200 miles of action relatively without issue. So, the way that they sit now, I think that these drivers are going to be easily to run through these longer runs, and it's certainly not uncharted territories that much. But I think that, Horn Fernandez have to like what they're thinking. This race could come down to a 5-lap run at the end or a 10-lap shootout, and then maybe you only need, a short-run car, and you can come down and get 4 fresh tires. But I would rather be good on the long runs and okay on the short runs in a race of this distance, just because there's always a chance that it can go green at the end. I don't think you could really plan on races being short runs to the end, Justin. It's kind of like how when we talk about strategy, the cautions really are the primary thing that dictates how a strategy is going to play out. You don't plan your strategy based around yellows. You plan to drive 150 laps uninterrupted, and then you go from there. Same thing with the race car. You build the race car, you learn to drive it, you test to go 150 laps, and you go from there. So despite the fact that anything could happen, we're not even halfway through this Charlotte 225. Connor Horn, race winner of the All-Star last week. He's starting to get a couple of car lengths between he and Andrew Friedrich up front right now. The gap has grown from 2/10 to 3.
Yeah, they keep on trading the times, in fact. One lap, Horn's been faster. The next lap, Friedrich gets a bit faster. It's kind of a bit of a cat and mouse game, however, again, with that. I think right now he's going to get some help as long as he can use some of the lap traffic as a pick, and Freenosh has difficulty getting around some of the drivers. That might be able to help him pull away even more so and try and break the toe, so to speak, away from the rest of the cars on this racetrack tonight. Again, a little bit faster, in fact. Going to lose some time, Freenosh, because he had to get around Jones and actually lost some momentum because he lost that outside line off quarter exit. It's going to get more interesting. The lights are on the racetrack, however, as we slowly approach the halfway point of this race.
And halfway, we will take a look when we get there top to bottom at your iRacing and our Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. It'll be a good opportunity to recap what has happened in the opening half of this race. And of course, maybe if that can give us any indication who's going to be to look for late. Going to be 28 cars who started it. 26 of them are still on track. And only the back two are off of the lead lap. It is only to a negative of 1 lap off the pace.
Yeah, this pace is still quickly picking up. The drivers that are falling off the lead lap, we should note, are a lot of the drivers involved in incidents. And the thing that's it's going to be difficult if you're not a part of a draft group, I think, at this point. Like, as much as you want to, yes, have clean air up the front, the reason if you don't, or towards the back and you don't have a drafting partner, is it can lose you again a couple tenths a lap. Talk about the 42, for example. That's Tom Morano's car. He's 21st, for example. The nearest car from him, in terms of position, is at least 3-4 seconds up the road. He's 4/10 slower a lap right now than Kyle Kamer at the moment. And struggling on top of that. It's going to get worse for some of those cars if you do not have that pace in the mid portion of this race. It's going to get more and more interesting as this run goes on, like I say. The thing that's getting interesting, though, look at what's happening with this lead, too. All of a sudden, Horn is trying to defend his way, and then at line, trying something different. He actually went up the hill, I think, this time, and tried to diamond his way to the bottom instead of riding the blue line and trying to find a way to ramp it off the corner. And that seems to be actually gaining him an extra half a tenth, maybe an extra 100th, every corner exit at this point compared to Freenosh, who is seeing that window open up and is trying to charge the corner, having to let off the gas at the apex and loses speed on the exit. So he might be actually chewing up that right front tire more so. Once again, we'd like to apologize for the technical difficulties for my partner Evan Bizocco tonight. He is currently working as hard as possible to rectify the issue for tonight's action here for today's race, as we've just passed the halfway point with 73 laps to go. And the race continues to go towards the pre-ultimate laps and towards the checker flag. Let's take a look at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. As talked about, we have seen the top 4 stay about the same so far. Horn, Freenosh, George McBride have all been in the top 4 since the drop of the last green flag. Skylar Shackelford has been the surprise of the race so far because he was involved in an accident, remember. Seems to have avoided engine damage, has severe front end damage. 2 seconds off the lead in 5th. Shane Parrish has dropped to 6th position, while O'Connell, Brotherton, Chambliss, and Washington round out the top 10. Behind that, in a special paint scheme, is John Fowler, as he works in that 11th position, 7 seconds back of the race lead with McClendon, Stanford, Weekly, Bohr, Jeremy Renenberg, and Nicholas Caldwell are in Ps number 12 through 17. Jeremy E. Miller is currently trying to catch up to them in 18th, 2 seconds back of those battles, with Matt Miller and Kyle Kamer in 19th and 20th. Tom Morano, Tom Novosad, Brian Lambert, and Kurt Renenberg are all still chugging along on the lead lap. Well, Andrew T. Jones is the first car lap down and is in lucky dog position. Dylan C. Jones, he is 2 laps down after his wreck a few moments ago, about 30-40 laps ago, with 2 DNFs in total tonight. Anthony Fredericks, Jason Jacoby. There's also a do not start of Jonathan Condell tonight. That's been a look at your Ford Entertainment Group midway race break. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built, affordable computers, specifically built and tuned for iRacing. PC will come with everything you need preloaded so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying an FEGPC. PCs to fit every budget from $540 and up. Visit www.fegpc.net and mention the code LSRTV10 and get your build quoted today. It's been, again, a good race, under 70 laps to go. The leaders, though, starting to dice it up a little bit, Evan, because they've changed lines. As I hit on just a few moments ago, Horn's trying to diamond off the corners and trying to leave the bottom open on the entry of 1 and 3. Freenosh is charging his way on the bottom line and is losing some speed on the corner exit. However, they're just about even on their lap times by doing that.
And they continue to hold a steady distance over George, McBride, Shackelford, and the rest of the field. But, you know, in 2 laps from now, Justin, we're going to be 40 laps removed for the last time these cars were down to pit lane. So they're at the very end of a green flag run here, and still being, at the moment of that midway race break, of course, 75 laps in, 75 to go, well over a run to the end. I don't think these drivers are going to be able to get to the end of this race on one stop unless they can pull out at minimum another 15 laps and start to push towards 55, which would be way to the high end of what you would expect. A lot of drivers were talking about 45 to 50 laps. Even if you can get to 50 and this thing stays green, you would not be able to go to the end unless you are incredible at fuel saving. So maybe if you're the second car in line for Renage, you're using a little bit of the draft. Maybe being tucked up in front of a fast race car isn't the worst thing in the world when our pit strategy appears at the moment to be on a razor's edge.
And I'm glad you brought up that point, because at the very most, you might see a car try and stretch it to 54-ish. And that's pushing it to make sure you don't run out. It's going to be tough. The thing is, that's going to hurt Horn. He's going to have, I think, at least 1 lap less of fuel because he's been leading the majority of these laps of this entire run. Hasn't had someone to draft off of where Freenosh. He's been able to, potentially in some cases, be able to get out of the gas a little bit more, not have to go full throttle, and just basically tuck behind and be patient, knowing that there's a chance to pass out later on. Yes, he's pushing now a little bit, but there was the chance he was doing that in the mid-run, knowing there was the dirty air that would make it extremely difficult and hurt him off the end of this run. If he tried to make that move, it's going to be interesting, this field strategy, to say the very least. Freenosh, though, it looks like he's done waiting.
Yeah, the 24 Connor Horn, he left the door open there on the outside into 1. Fernandez dove low. It is not going to be able to stick, though. Again, that car just does not have the grip and the speed that it did on lap 45 or so for the race start to be able to make the inside work. And I think Connor Horn knows that. I still don't think he's going to leave the inside wide open and kind of dare Andrew Fernandez to eat up his equipment. The 88 is not a driver easily coaxed into doing something like that, but he saw some daylight, tried again that time and won. So certainly not to the point that I had just made, that maybe it isn't a bad idea, Justin, to run behind somebody if you're trying to save some fuel and get an extra lap or two into this thing. Fernandez wants to go. He's pushing it. I wonder just how hard these two, therefore, are pushing one another.
Like I said, it was more so the mid-run if he was going to do that, he was trying to save. The reason I think we've been seeing it more in the past 5-10 laps when Horn started moving up towards that higher line and trying to diamond it off the corner to ramp it down the racetrack. That's when Freenosh started pushing and realizing, I want to make this pass right now because he's leaving that bottom open for me. I think the thing is, though, too, like I talked about, it's nearly impossible to pass on that bottom side, unfortunately, this week, because you need to have a bit more space, I think. Horn is squeezing down for a reason. He knows if he can't allow Freenosh to get back in the gas on that bottom to get off the track, he won't get the job done and get the pass or stay side by side off the corner. Horton's doing what exactly what he needs to do to hold on to this lead towards the end of this pit cycle.
We'll see if he does want to come down to the pit lane as the #1 spot, or the ever so popular undercut. You come in, you get some fresh tires a little bit earlier. If maybe Andrew Fernandez wants to come in before the 24 does, and see if that's going to be the way to get around it, because assuming that, you know, the little hints that we're seeing while this battle takes place, Justin, are true, and that these drivers are actually going toe-to-toe with one another and driving it really aggressively, then I think that the 88 needs to find a little bit of an advantage, and by undercutting on a pit strategy could be the exact way he does it.
Yeah, that's the thing. you can gain about up to maybe 4, 5, 6 seconds depending on if you undercut a driver. The problem is, and it was seen time and time again, including in the real world race, that difference in tires can fall right back to the other driver quick within the first 10 laps of a run. And even on that difference in tires, it's nearly impossible to try and defend. So if you try and pull off that move, you're going to need to hope you put together perfect laps and defend for the race of your life. It's side by side, however, for the race lead.
And at the start-finish line, the advantage to Andrew Farina as he had it by 5 1/1000ths of a second, but the 24 is not going to let this one go. He'll pinch in the center of 1 and 2. Now it'll be his car with the advantage down the back straightaway, as you just saw Dylan Jones another lap down as he holds down on the flat of the racetrack at the apron. Now as Freitas gets pinched down here, he has no arc into the corner. It's going to be very difficult for him to carry speed off, and that's where the 24 can make him pay. A half a car length clear he gets. But as they go back down into 1, Freitas drives it in, and they are neck and neck again. Just look how much the 88 is on top of that line, almost all the way to the apron in the center of the corner, trying to make it work. It just will not stick, and Horn defends, takes the race lead back.
It's going to get very fierce, I think, all the way up until when these drivers need to come in for their fuel. Because we're almost towards that very, very edge where if you are able to save enough, you can make it to the end. It's about 2 laps from that said window. I think these cars, though, the smart move, go all the way towards empty, because you don't want to leave anything up for chance if you're battling for this race lead at this point. Again, Freenach trying to charge that inside line. Not enough space to launch off the corner, however.
The way that they sit now, again, I still think that 24 is in the best position here. But Freitas can kind of box him out, and it depends how aggressive he wants to get. He's been holding his line on the bottom, and sure, Connor Horn's been going down to the inside and pinching a little bit. But I don't think that they've overstepped the line. I think both drivers very aware with 55 laps to go in this race as they are on the edge of that fuel window that they don't need to be wrecking race cars right now. There are 50 laps since the last time they pitted. There are still 55 laps to go in this race. 2-3 more laps, I think we get to the point.
Yes, indeed, right now. These drivers are going side by side. In fact, both George and McBride have changed up their strategies. They're coming in the pit right now to try and gain a little bit of time and I don't think they feel they have enough fuel. Blake O'Connell's also calling to come into the pits this time by. Drivers are ducking down very quickly here.
And this is going to be a long road to hoe to the end if you can stretch 55 laps to get to the end of this race. So it is not Freitas going for the undercut on the race lead. It is the rest of the cars in the top 10 undercutting your race leaders as they continue to fight for the race lead up at the front of the field. Now over 2 seconds clear from everybody else.
The thing is, that's going to potentially drop on back because they're going to still have to come in. I think, again, though, the strategy, if you're Freenosh, follow Horn into the pits. Don't allow him to get any fresher tires or be able to dictate that. Now, I think it's potentially maybe either this time or next time by we maybe see one of these 2 drivers in, because at that point, it will be about 51-ish to go when they come back on the track and should be right at that cusp of fairly making it to the end of the race on their gas.
Well, it looks like they are going to be able to make it there, so obviously these drivers believe that they're going to be able to go, and here it is. Connor Horn going to come down to the race lead. He pits at 98, and what a move as he blows by Tom Novosad, who had made the commitment to pit road well earlier. Connor Horn dives down for the battle for the race lead. He'll get the fresh tires before Freitas does, as the 88 now ends up as your race leader.
He's going to probably come in this time by, though. I would have preferred to try and follow in, but the thing is, way too close. It looks like he had to call in to be able to prepare. He's actually staying out an extra couple laps. This is going to be an interesting move, and I think he's trying to make sure he has enough fresher tires while he's going to lose time to be able to pass. It looks like the 24, though, got spun in the pits.
Yeah, big issues for Connor Horn as he came in for the battle for the race lead. Didn't make it into the box. The 26 came out of the stall next to him. He turned across his nose, and Connor Horn turned while trying to come down to the pit lane is going to basically take him out of this race. The fact that Fredar stayed out doesn't matter. Here comes the 88 now. It is clean into the box, and Connor Horn, who has been so close so many times, is maybe going to lose another one, as Fredar's entry was clean, and now he just looks to get into the box without issue.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge mistake. I think it's potentially possible, I think, that, of course, on iRacing, in some cases on the pit exits, drivers can go through the other cars, well, for the sake of making sure.
That's on the concrete, not on the asphalt.
Yeah.
If you're in the box,
Yeah.
you're good, but that was out on the lane, and
Yeah.
it's not like real life. There's no crew guys sitting there telling you to wait when a car's coming in pit road and vice versa. So Connor Horn, I can understand why he's upset. But the car could out of the pit road. It's not really paying that much attention. You can't turn across somebody's nose. I know you don't want to give up time. You don't want to get on the gas or get on the brakes, and wait. But I think that those two drivers got to figure it out. It's a different atmosphere than what it is in real life. There's no help. There's two cars there. Someone had to figure that out.
Exactly. You hit it right on the head. He had to be aware of what was going on there. You can't just come across like that. In that case, it could potentially cost him this victory. He's all the way back to what is currently 15th and what is provisionally towards the back half of the top 10. Absolute major mistake, yes. But if he felt like that was going to be a possibility, that they were going to be side by side, if I was Horn, I would have tried to get down towards the left side of the boxes maybe a bit quicker than what he did there instead of coming across the nose. Now, net leader is currently McBride for the time being on the older tires.
As it'll all cycle through, you've got Thomas J. George as well up there in the number 9 car, currently scored in that top position. O'Connell is second, followed then by McBride and Fredar's in line. So Fredar's ends up in the number 4 position the way they sit now. Of course, Thomas George is last completed his pit stop. He was that very early group that came down pit road at lap number 96. So this is, the same strategy. These cars are racing against each other. Fredar's is going to have to make up 7.1 seconds on these guys because they're not going to, at least we assume, have to come back down to the pit lane. Now, Justin, they're going to be pushing it. That's going to be 55 laps at least for all the cars in front of Fredar's to have to make it to the end. But Fredar's was able to go lap 44 to lap 101. That would be 56 laps on fuel. So they may just have pulled this one off. Fredar's has better tires, so he'll catch them. At the moment, those are not cars that are just going to get out of the way. They're going to have older tires, and Brent McBride's going to lose P3 here any moment. But Thomas George has got a real opportunity to steal this race.
Yeah, he's got 6 seconds. In fact, George and O'Connell has an error of 4 seconds in front of Freenosh at the moment. Big time contact, though. Horn spinning down the backstretch.
Connor Horn into the inside wall. It is a big hit. The 2 of Caldwell is involved. The caution flag is out. And my, oh my, how the tables have turned. Connor Horn, with the mistake on pit road, gets cycled back into traffic after contact, and as the LSR TV replay will show, and just now over the radio, claiming responsibility for the incident was Nicholas Caldwell. Just got a little bit loose at a 2, came down, hooked the 24 car, and Connor Horn will not be in victory lane tonight.
Yeah, it looks like right on there is some bumps in 1 and 2 with this newer scan of Charlotte. And that is one of the bumps. I think he might have hit a slight touch where the car can rotate a little bit loose like that, where it doesn't look like it snaps. Hits his right rear quarter panel, and just nothing neither of them can do except for go along for the ride. Both of them significantly destroyed. Just absolute snowball effect, unfortunately, for Horn at this point.
That's how quickly somebody's race can change. We talked about the possibility where, a race could go green to the end, we come to the pit stops, and it's a snowball effect because, again, if the contact never happens on pit road, Connor Horn is never back there in that battle. That incident never happens, and he could very well be coming down pit road here with everybody else as our race leader. But here's an interesting thing for you. You still want tires, so they're going to get fuel to the end. The fuel question is out of the way, but Thomas J. George now no longer going to have a tire disadvantage. He pits from number 1 spot. O'Connell's in from second. Farinar's from third, expecting all of them to go for 4 tires.
And this might actually be extremely helpful, in fact, in this situation now, because of when this came out. There was, of course, a strong chance, I still think, that 1, they still would have been near the edge of the fuel, but 2, that there was a chance that George was still going to lose the lead on track position. Now with the fresher tires, and the fact that he's been having a top 5 car all night, he's got a strong shot at trying to steal this race away. The problem is, the man that we've talked about many times, the points leader entering tonight, will have to line up potentially to his outside on this restart, as Kamer is once again staying out for the time being. He's done this a couple times to try and lead some laps.
Yeah, so we'll see him come back down to the pit lane, but the big change for position there on pit road was the fact that Blake O'Connell lost a spot to Farinars. And I went back, looked at the pit stop for the 67 Ford Fusion. Didn't look bad. I mean, a lot of the time, it took a lot of time, I should say, for the car to get up and onto the jacks. And sometimes you would expect that's because somebody's deep staged, up against the wall. It looked like he may have been a little bit to the right in the pit box, but I mean, aside from that, I really don't see why it took so long for the car to actually get jacked up. He took 4 tires like the rest of them, but it'll cost him a spot. And again, I don't think it was on purpose, but it's the difference between being on the outside of one row or the inside of the row behind. So it may still all work out as he looks to get his first win and his first start in this Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. But for the moment, it's a position lost. And Andrew Ferdinand is right there, going to be alongside George, assuming Kamer comes down to the pit lane. I'm not too sure, though, because, I mean, the 8 car when he's been pitting the lap immediately after. The lights are still on top of the pace car, so no rush. He can come in this time, but at some point, and this restart's going to come just at 40 laps to go in this race, the bonus point's nice, but now Kamer's got to start looking for track position. I don't see 10 of the 22 cars on the lead lap just wrecking out of this. So, does he dare stay out? He was just on the pit lane not that far before the yellow actually came out.
Yeah, I just double-checked this. It is 2 lap-ish, maybe 3 lap-old tires that we've seen didn't lose a lot of time, surprisingly, in the first 10 laps before they started equalizing. This might be, you might be right, this might be what his call is going to be here. Even with that some of that damage on the right side of the car, or this might be, if he gets a caution situation here, might be what gets him towards the top 10 in this field again.
There's some other cars out there, so we'll give him a call. Kurt Rittenberg stays out to get the wave by, so he'll rejoin us to the lead lap in the number 22 spot. Same applies to Todd Novosad and Brian Lambert. You also have Andrew T. Jones. He will go from 2 laps down to 1 lap down. Those 4 cars going to get waved around. And that means that the 8 of Kyle Kamer has decided to stay out. And it'll be the SK Sim Racing Chevy Camaro to bring us to the green flag tonight. He came down to the pit lane at lap 102. So he has 5 green flag laps on those tires.
Yeah, this is going to be extremely difficult to even try and hold some of the track position, because we've seen before it's as much in some cases as 0.3 of a second, even on the opening lap off a restart. He might get freight trained maybe on this outside line towards especially 3 and 4 by some of these drivers that want to make some moves, and that could start getting a little bit dangerous. I think if your driver's on the inside line, I think the preferred line of caution is to be cautious to make sure you stay out of trouble in off this restart here.
And we'll see just how much of that advice they actually adhere to, as it is a restart with 110 laps complete and only 40 laps to go in the Charlotte 225. Critical points on the line from this week on out as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. And I think most importantly, the playoff cutoff at Indianapolis in a couple of months' time. Pace car down. Kyle Kamer, first time actually leading us to the green flag tonight. The old tire number 8 car leads from 17th to first at lap 111.
And now this gets to the real test once they come down the backstretch and towards 3 and 4, because we've seen that it's always been a good launch, about 2 to 3 car lengths for the leader. It's difficult to keep said lead. What will Kamer do? Looks like he's going to try and fight for his life here to try and keep this position. And it's actually bottoming up the bottom line as there's a wreck in the back.
Caution flag behind. The leader's got to get hard and onto the brakes. It is Dylan C. Jones in the 03 car around. Also involved is Brian Lambert. We'll take a look. LSR TV replay. It looks like Jones, who was really just had an abysmal night, got way loose off of turn number 2, tried to tuck back up in line and hesitated. He didn't take the spot when it was there, but he eventually decided to do so. The hole had filled up. He gets into it with the number 55, and both of those cars go for a spin way back in a fight that was for 26th.
I think the one thing, too, is it looked like, first off, he had a problem getting off the corner. You've seen how much he bobbled towards the right. That's because that right front fender, want you to take a look at that, it's kind of knocked the toe out a little bit on that car, and it makes it very difficult to hold in a straight line. It's sometimes like a wobbling effect down the straightaways with that suspension damage. That's what I think pushed him up the track while he's trying to keep a straight line. And unfortunately, the bystander in that one with nowhere to go is Brian Lambert with no idea that was about to happen and towards his nose.
He's just driving up on the outside, and Dylan Jones was squirrely trying to jump up in line, cuts in front of him, and all of a sudden your night is done. Kamer is going to come down and give up the race lead, which, in all honesty, I don't quite understand the strategy call. Everybody's going to be able to make it to the end of this race out of fuel. If you were committed to fighting for the race lead, the yellow flag actually helps you, because it takes green flag laps out of this, so I'm not sure why Kamer now deciding to come down to the pit lane, but he does. Also, Jones claiming the responsibility for the caution, so Dylan Jones will get the end of the longest line of penalty for coming up and over the nose of the 55 for Brian Lambert, who sits on a pit lane trying to get patched up.
I honestly don't get it either for Kyle, unfortunately. I will kind of want to ask about it later on tonight, because I would have still stayed out even with the older tires. Yeah, there's a couple more heat cycles on them now, of course, with an extra heat cycle with the restart, but honestly, I think he needed another 2 to 3 laps on the run to be able to say, okay, now I can just go and take tires and be able to charge up to the field. This is only like 1 lap difference on the tires. That is not a big difference even on this package. I don't get it. I honestly don't get it for the track position, and I think it's more so a safety precaution maybe. That's all I can really say. I don't know.
They were coming hot, and it was going to be a very intense battle for the race lead. I mean, Fernandez had no intentions of going high to get up and around him. It looked like that the 88 actually planned on going through him on the inside, so maybe he's thinking, I need to get out of here before I get wrecked. The other thing is, he started 17th position, comes down to the pit lane here under the yellow flag, and he's going to be scored at the line, well, 17th, exactly where he started. Even if you have a really bad 10-lap run, you fall to what? 8th place, 9th place? And now that we've grouped everybody back up, Justin, I'm not all that sure that we're going to get this 35-lap run and stay green to the end. I think we still have caution flags due up, which means, based on the importance that tires have been, you're going to be able to come back down and get tires. So maybe Kamer's thinking, I'm going to get my tires now, but everybody else comes down to get them maybe on a later yellow, then I'll stay out, go to the front. I would have thought, hey, you drop back to 7th or 8th position, but you get tires, you can defend. At the end of the day, these are the drivers that are on track every single week, not us, so we kind of have to sit and speculate and try to put that driver hat on and, give our best guess as we can. But Kamer goes from leading this race to 17th, while really nobody else up front came down pit road.
Yeah, the thing is, too, it's no surprise, of course, see the drivers stay out with a 1-lap difference of tires. But at this point, if you're Kyle, I think right now he's maybe expecting the way they were driving up there after seeing what was happening in his back mirror. that he's expecting something to happen. Maybe that's what he's kind of maybe seeing in his mind, saying, if I drop to the back, I can potentially avoid a lot of that shuffling that could be happening up towards the front, because it could get pretty crazy for this restart. Freenosh is the control car for this upcoming restart, but you have drivers that are either looking for one of their first wins of the season or looking for their best run all year to get to victory lane for the first time, like Chambliss, like O'Connell in his first start, for crying out loud. It's going to get absolutely nuts for a lot of drivers that are hungry to win to end off their Memorial Day weekend.
It'll be fun to see how this one is played through. The restart will come with exactly those 35 laps left to go, with what is 23 cars currently still scored on the lead lap. In fact, all 23 cars in this race, with the exception of Dylan Jones, are on the lead lap. Jones is the only lapped car that is still actively going around. It has been a rough night for that driver, and maybe for his sake, a couple of cars wreck out of this, he gets some points, but it has been not a good race for him. So we get set for this restart, which could be the final one on the evening. Fredar's in control, as noted, with O'Connell to the outside, George and Chambliss back at row 2. McBride rounds out your top 5, of course, full running order across at the top of your screen. Is this going to be it? The dash to the checkered flag, the longest race of the season, is now a 35-lap shootout from Concord, North Carolina. Green flag back in the air. It's a late start for Fredar's. It'll check them up behind, so they'll fight for third on back. George can't get to the inside of the 67. Now he does in turn 1.
And Brotherton crushed the nose because of that checkup on the back of Scott McClendon's machine. That might slow him down a bit. But take a look at how big of a jump is. I'm surprised Freenosh is actually blocking to the apron, and we're seeing what we've seen in the All-Star race. Trying to move up high, try and diamond down, and try and get the best run along that blue line to keep the lead because of how chaotic it can be off these restarts. O'Connell, though, caught the most unlucky on this one.
The 67 was slow on the outside. He got no help. Look at the run for Thomas George. He got pushed all the way down the backstretch last lap of the 45 and the 5. They shoved him all the way to the inside. He goes. Fredar's leaves some space on the inside. George challenging for the race lead in corners 3 and 4. Fredar's pinches down to the door, but fresh tires may make the inside work. Dead heat at the start-finish line. George trying to take it away.
And I think George got the lead lap. Yes, he did on that one. And I think he knew that was his one chance to try and take this lead before the tire effect starts to come in, towards that high line starts to come into play. He's got no help, though. McBride, one of his teammates, is still a car length and a half back, while O'Connell's got at least, Freenosh has at least 3 drivers that are drafting off his back bumper.
You can see that big line up on the outside, kind of in the middle of all of this is O'Connell, all on his own. Nobody to his inside. He could go down, push the knot. I'm sure Thomas J. George would appreciate it, but I think he feels like as well that the balances start to get a shift to the outside line as he grazes the fence that time down into quarter 3. Fredar's clears, defending the race lead, and the 67 of O'Connell takes it away. Race high now, P2.
And you know how big that difference was between that bottom line down the middle of the backstretch and the high line was? At least 4 or 5 miles per hour. 180 on the bottom, 185-ish on that top line for Freenosh to make that move, along with O'Connell. So the light switches back onto the outside line under these lights. This is going to be extremely difficult now for these drivers to try and find their way to the right side quarter panel of Freenosh to make a move now, though.
And we'll see who makes the move first. Is it going to be O'Connell? Does he sit back and wait and maybe try to bide his time, conserve that race car? 30 laps to go. Last time by for the Charlotte 225. We are single file, top to bottom in the top 9. There is a fight for P10. Scott Brotherton in the 20, finding and getting around the 26 of Jeremy Rittenberg. So it is a short-lasting exchange, about 1.5 seconds off of the top position. But everybody's single file, drafting off of one another, be trying to get to the end of this race. Of course, maybe especially, I guess I should say, if you feel like your car is better on the long run, play it easy now. Don't tear it up and maybe put a little bit of pressure on the 88, force Ferinars to tear up that equipment so he's not as hot as he is right now in the final 10.
And I think that's what maybe O'Connell's doing, because he's matching the lap pace, surprisingly, of Freenosh in his first start in this series. In fact, was faster than him. No, he's not. He wants this lead now, surprisingly. Did find that hole. That line's not going to work, however. So I think now maybe Freenosh is trying to think maybe I can have him wear out his equipment, even though he's faster, to be able to pull weight for the final 10 laps.
I just don't think that inside line's going to work. We saw it when Freitas was trying to get to the race lead and he was on the bottom of the racetrack. You just can't get the speed off the corner, especially when that car on your right-hand side is on your door, pinching you down and making sure that you've got nowhere to go. Now, these drivers haven't really gone physical yet, and probably not the smartest idea at 180 plus miles an hour as they go back into quarter 3. However, if O'Connell cannot get to the outside, Johnson, maybe go down low, push up a little bit, rub doors with Freitas, get him off that middle line, make him run up high against the wall. Even though you're on the bottom, if you can get a couple of feet off the white line, it might help you out a little bit.
It might come down to that, surprisingly, in this one, because I think right now, if you're O'Connell or any of these drivers, while you are quick, it's going to have to come to that point, because you can see how much drivers are pushing up with some of the dirty air, especially trying to go towards that higher groove. Well, the draft can really win. Draft, especially in the corners, is not going to help you win this race. You got to make that aggression go up. Push the driver. Try and go for this run up at this point. I don't know if O'Connell can get to the right rear quarter panel unless he charges hard in the corner, and that has not been something that's been working all week.
They're starting to get a little bit of spacing on George. He is, I think, kind of looking in his rear view mirror more so than he's watching O'Connell and Freitas fight for the race lead, because Brian Chambliss is on his bumper. Behind him, McBride is right there as well. So a trio of cars fighting for 3rd, 4th, and 5th position. None of them, by the way, are actually side by side, or I guess technically, actively engaged in a fight for that spot. But I mean, when you're on top of each other like that, one small mistake opens the door wide open, and Denine with a good run that time off of the corner, now actually going to be closer to O'Connell than O'Connell is to the race leader. So the 67 has to be very careful here to not overdrive the car, but he also cannot take it easy, because if he's sitting around 4 or 5 car lengths off of the race leader, waiting to try to make a pretty move late in this race, the 9 car is going to make the move now and take it away from him.
He's trying to back up the corners, in fact, too. He's getting right off the gas and trying to, like I talked about, the faster line is doing that and dragging the brakes a little bit. We've seen it with Martin Truex Jr. That's allowing him to get these big runs off the corners and get him towards side by side, and how he got by the number 45. The thing is, it's going to take even more so aggression to get the job done past the rest of these cars, because of how they've been running quicker than him, while not doing that same effect at this point. It's going to take some luck, I think, for George to win this race.
We'll see if luck is on his side. Maybe it's a full moon and things get a little bit crazy next time by. Going to be only 20 laps to go in the Charlotte 225. The 9s, though, left the inside open. Chambliss gets a nose there. You can't really make a move on the inside, and it is actually, in fact, going to cost him a position, because the 5 of McBride takes it back.
Yeah, Chambliss is actually dropping back right now at this point. I think he's getting a little too aggressive there. This is one of his strongest runs of 2019 in that USAF Security Forces Memorial car. But right now, I think he needs to still dial it back. He lost a 10th because of him getting squished down to the bottom. Just fall in line. Wait for the drivers in front of you to get aggressive back, and move to the outside. Don't move to that inside, because they're not going to give you space on the corner exits. We've seen time and time again tonight.
And I wonder if the 5 knew that the inside was an option. Take that back, because he'll now go to the inside. McBride with a big run. conventional wisdom says you gotta get him by the center of the corner. He's clear. Does he slide up in front? Yes, he does. Rhett McBride with a little bit of a slide job at 175 miles an hour. Gets in front of George, takes away third position inside of 20 to go. And now we'll see if the Riverwatch Chevy's got enough to get all the way up there.
And it looked like a little bit George maybe said, you know what, take it. I think you're going faster. That might have been the case because McBride was the fastest car on the racetrack last time by, and he's starting to fly. They've already gained up an extra car length after making that swap. That might have been a teammate move to say, I know you're quicker. Why don't I help you, Mr. Steelhorse Racing teammate, to have a shot to win this race and follow behind your lead and follow your line to get back up towards second or the lead.
The race leaders are now at that point in the run where the tires are starting to get old. You're lifting in the corners and maybe you're getting a little bit of distance. It is O'Connell still there. Gap looks like about 4 car lengths at a turn 2. It's about half the distance that he has, over George, who's starting to slide back into P4. But you see these cars, they're still pretty close. Your top 5 separated last time by 3/4 of a second about another. But it is difficult still to make up those 4 car lengths. It's not like you're going to get a huge run now like maybe you would have right off of the race start. So you got to be smart about this. Do you continue to follow that car in front of you? You're only going to get tighter now the longer into the run you get. If that car in front's taking the air off the nose of your car, or if you feel comfortable, if that's your preferred line, but you're running identical lap times, do you start to mix things up? Try to find a different option. If the battle for the race win is that important to you, O'Connell continues. Already got the wall that time at a 4. The 67 slapped the wall. Here comes Rhett McBride to the inside, and the 5 car looks to take over second spot.
And to answer the question, the latter of the two is what I preferred. But for O'Connell, he was trying to do that, taking a higher line off of turn 4, ends up drifting him straight to the fence, and he's been way aggressive to hold on to the second spot all of a sudden. He nearly pinched McBride down into the infield wall that time by down the backstretch.
I think it's a hefty piece of driving that the 67 machine was able to stay in front of him. I thought McBride had it, but the 67 of O'Connell obviously drove it in hard when he got back down there into 1 and 2, defended. The problem is, I think that race car is hurt. Inside's open again. Here comes McBride once more, and there's that move, Justin. Not immediately going all the way to the bottom. He tried to keep the 67 up the racetrack a little bit to help him. Didn't do all that much, though. Still O'Connell at the start-finish line. And the guy who's loving all of this is Andrew Frenars, a 10th better than everybody else last time as he watches the fight in his rearview mirror. McBride slides high, takes away the second spot.
And that was what McBride needed to do quickly, because with the right front damage especially, you can sometimes lose straight line speed up to 2-3 miles per hour into the corners, and that's what's happening to O'Connell and why he's starting to fall back very quickly with that severe damage to the right front fender right above that tire. He's now going to be a sitting duck inside this top 5. There's a chance he can potentially fall to as low as 10th or 11th if this race goes green, unfortunately, after such a strong race in his first start in the series. But at this point, you can tell, Evan, as well, that right now, that side drafting battle ended up helping Freenash so much that he's now broken a bit of the draft and is now a 10th faster a lap because of how he's been able to break it up. He fell back to even this time by at the stripe. But yeah, that might have been just enough to do the job.
Certainly, and I think that, George right there, number 9, trying to get around McConnell, almost put him in the fence again. That fight for third now has given McBride some space, so the 5 is in the wake of the 88. There is still some of that backdraft off your race leader, but he's got the ability to move freely inside and out. And you compare the lap times between the two, they're pretty even. Frenars with a 30.928. It was an 8.80 for McBride, so he takes a little bit of a chunk out of it. But he's only going to have 10 laps to make it up, so he needs more than that per lap if he's going to be able to get there in time. And that is if the cars behind don't wreck. The 67 of O'Connell really struggling now, losing third to George. And now the 45 of Chambliss to the inside, trying to boot him all the way back to P5.
And that's going to just continue and continue, unfortunately, for O'Connell at this point. He's just got to just try and chug it on out because there's not enough time either if there's a caution to get the damage repaired to try and get the speed back. If you do that, you lose all your track position. You just got to live with what you did to your race car. The thing is up towards that front, McBride. He's found that different line I was referring to. Remember what Horn was doing, where he was diming off the corner in 1 and 2, as well as the exit coming into 3 and down 4. That's been gaining him the 10th a lap now and back into the draft of the 88 machine.
And does he have enough time to close this one in? Lapped car gets out of the way, so they're looking at the 03 of Dylan C. Jones there, who was able to get up, get out, get high, and I don't think he played any effect, in fact, to go all the way to the apron to let your race leaders go on by. The 5 of Rhett McBride tiptoes that much closer. Thomas George in 3rd. This time is probably going to be over a second behind for the race lead. Going to be the highest such margin we have seen on this run. It is 1.044 back. So it is a 2-car fight for the lead. And Rhett McBride started to mix it up. Takes a high line that time in 1 and 2. And he's closing the gap. He's got a fighting shot at this one.
And it looks like Freaknosh has now shifted back towards charging hard into the corner entry and letting off the gas to about 163-ish miles per hour for the apex to make sure he makes the corner. The problem is, McBride's been able to actually do it, I think, better than what Horn was doing before with that diamond effect, to be able to keep the speed while not pushing too much up, even though he's looking like it's tight. But the caution is out, and this is going to change everything.
And I think this is going to set us up for a late race. Race start on the doorstep as 6 to go. A caution flag is out. It's David Washington. The 98 Ford was running inside of the top 10. And an incident between he and Scott McClendon will slow us down. And when we get a second look at this one, Justin, I think it is going to show that as David Washington had actually caused the incident. The 15 of McClendon was in front of him. Washington started to peek to the inside, and he got him on the left rear quarter panel, hooked him around, and I don't think there was anything McClendon did wrong there.
Yeah, there wasn't anything he did wrong at all. It was just misjudging where he was at the racetrack for David Washington, and just absolutely hooked back in. Involves a few other good cars that we've seen today. Shackelford got some damage from that. Looked like Parrish got some damage from that. Just a missed time, just misjudged it completely, trying to ride, looked like that inside line, or at least try and side draft the 51 machine of McClendon, and ends up destroying the car. This is going to be tough now, because as you said, it looks like it might be a 1-lap shootout, maybe 2-ish.
Oh!
And no one's going to come out of this point. Chambliss, though, he's going to lose all his track position because of this.
He does come in from the number 4 spot. Everybody else was lined up but faked out. And listen, do you want tires? Absolutely. If it's a 5-lap run to the end, do you get tires? Sure. But if it's 1 or 2 laps, I just don't think there's time. And I think Brian Chambliss was hoping more cars came in behind him. Here are some more, but, I mean, they're from well outside the top 10.
That's a major mistake, I think. He can maybe get back in the top 10 through 3 and 4 if he's able to time up how he does on this restart. The problem is, that's not a race-winning move whatsoever. That's a move where you just threw away a top 5, unfortunately. I don't understand that move whatsoever, but that completely shakes things up. Everyone else, though, should note, stayed out. Again, it's 1, maybe 2-ish on this for a shootout. You don't want to sacrifice any risk of track position or lose spots in the pits on this kind of a situation. It could get very dicey, more so because this is the oldest amount of tires we've seen really the entire week on this service. 4 of these cars that are going to have to go on a restart. There's a chance we might see actual tire spin here.
The oldest tires, we haven't restarted on tires, anywhere near this old all night long, so it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do with him, and also just how many laps we are going to have. Of course, we hadn't yet got to talk about it. We were almost there, though. The point to no return, a yellow with 4 laps to go or less would mean that this race would have ended under caution. That was coming to 5 laps to go. So we will have a restart. Pretty confident in that. The question remains on how many laps we will have, and the lights would have had to have gone out that time for it to be a green white checker. So if the lights go out the next time by, it'll be a 1-lap dash to the end of this race. And based on the fact that Fredars isn't congratulating, and the 5 of McBride's already doubled up on the outside, I think the drivers have been given the 2-to-go signal.
Yes, indeed. Race control told everyone that it was that 1-lap shootout as they crossed the stripe. This is going to get nuts, because Freenach has been really good on these restarts since he's been up at the point tonight. At one point, he had just about 6 laps led before what happened to Horn. So it's going to get crazy, I think, off through 3 and 4. It might be tough to make this move. Everyone's going to be trying to time up when to go. The last time he bunched everyone up, Evan. This time, he can go whatever he wants. He's the control card. That might completely scramble things, and we might see some contact before we get to the stripe with people trying to time when he's going to jump on the gas.
If he goes early, then everybody's going to be up on the throttle, and you probably get a decent enough restart. But on the advantage of Fernandez, this is the thing here. I think he will benefit the most, Justin, if he goes early. Because he'll, be able to get out in front, and 3-4 car lengths of an advantage could be insurmountable with just 1 lap to try to get around him. At the stripe, just to confirm, the lights are out, and it will be a 1-lap shootout to the end. However, if he goes really late, they'll probably stack him up and wad him up behind him. But if they get to the white flag, and even if there is a wreck, there is the yellow, there's a chance Rick McBride's a lot closer. So if I'm the 88 of Fernandez, I'm going nice and early. This is far for the first time, though, that he's found himself in the control car position for a late race restart. So I think he's got a pretty good idea of what he's going to want to do. It comes down to execution here. 1.5 miles, that's it.
It's going to take a perfect start. It's going to take as well, knowing how late it is, to know that he's going to probably do what he did before. Went actually a bit too low down the backstretch, stay on the bottom, then he might try and arc it up to the high side to get a run down the track through 3 and 4. If you're any of the cars behind, I think the move is either make sure you time up the gas perfectly with the 88 machine, or get to that outside before he goes through 3 and 4 to have a chance to get the checkered flag.
We talked at the start of the night how this was the longest race of the season, how it could be a battle of attrition, and quite the contrary. It comes down to a 1-lap shootout for the race winner from Charlotte Motor Speedway. There's the early jump. Andrew Fernandez, so 1 lap to go. Rockets to the race lead.
And there's a smaller gap, though, this time than a lot of his other starts for Rhett McBride this time. He might be able to be just in range. A couple drivers are getting bottled up behind Shackelford and 4 wide. This is going to get nuts for this race win.
Oh, it's a big wreck back in the pack. Half the field crashes at turn number 2. But the battle for the race leads in 3 and 4. McBride gets close, not close enough. He slides up in turn 3. And Andrew Fernandez is going to hang on, winning tonight from Charlotte Motor Speedway. McBride settles for P2. Thomas George to round out our podium.
And McBride just sent it in. He knew his only chance was to get outside of Freenach. But the problem is, he went too hard trying to go full throttle, went up the racetrack. By the time he had to get out of the gas, it was too little too late. A heck of a run, though, for Freenach to take the checker flag and win by 0.2 of a second. Make it 3 tonight.
It is going to be critical that we take a look top to bottom at your full race results to the post-race show, because a lot of those are different to how they were coming to the white flag, because, again, everybody was checked up 3-4 wide back in the pack, and I think most of the cars wrecked down the back straightaway. Only some of them were able to limp it home to the end of this one, but as Andrew Fernandez celebrates on the front straightaway, he takes home the win in the Charlotte 225. Sporting the patriotic paint scheme, taking the win on this Memorial Day weekend. What we'll do is step aside one final time, And when we come back, we'll go trackside and talk with your top finishers. You're watching the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health. More to come for the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway. You're watching LSR TV on the iRacing Esports Network.
The most realistic online racing sim ever made. This is iRacing. Detailed laser scan tracks, fully dynamic real world cars, and over 50 series to choose from. 6 online world championships offering over $100,000 in annual prizes. This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSR TV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSR TV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. And welcome back live to the virtual Charlotte Motor Speedway, where LSR TV's coverage of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, continued with tonight's Charlotte 225. We're happy that you are with us on your home for sim racing and the iRacing Esports Network. Evan Pasoko, Justin Prince upstairs with you to be joined shortly by our top finishers in this race. However, before we go trackside and chat with them, let's take a look at tonight's Ford Entertainment Group full race results. pending a post-race review, so we will call them the unofficial race results so far for round number 11. We look forward to talking to Andrew Freitas, our race winner, along with Rhett McBride and Thomas George, who finished inside of the top 3, but it gets a little bit fuzzier from that point on back. Scott McClendon got a P4 out of this one, and Blake O'Connell rounded out your top 5. Jeremy E. Miller finishes in the number 6 spot. Scott Brotherton in 7th position, with Eric Stanford in 8th, Kyle Cameron 9th, and Jeremy Rittenberg rounding out your top 10.
Tom Morano on that big one you talked about on the last lap on the backstretch went 170 miles per hour through the whole incident and missed every single car to come away from 19th, 18th I should say, from the last restart to P number 11. In front of Tom Novosad, also involved in the big one, Caleb Weekly, Brian Chambliss, Brian Lambert, Andrew T. Jones, Kurt Rittenberg, Brad Bohr, Skylar Shackelford, and John Fowler, who all finished at the end of the lead lap tonight, Evan.
And 21st on the back is probably going to remain as shown just because, well, all these cars are out of the race. 6 laps down for David Washington, who finishes in 21st spot. You've also got Shade Parrish in 22nd, with Matt Miller, Dylan Jones, Connor Horn through your top 25. Nicholas Caldwell finished in 26th. Anthony Fredericks 27th. And Jason Jacoby with the early DNF, just 2 laps in, finished in 28th in the final position. That's a look top to bottom at your Ford Entertainment Group full race results. FEGPC has been serving the iRacing community with custom-built affordable computers specifically built and tuned for iRacing. Your PC will come with everything you need preloaded, so you can get racing as soon as it hits your doorstep. Get yours today and join the 600-plus iRacers already enjoying a Ford Entertainment Group computer PC to fit every budget from $540 and up when you go online to www.fegpc.net and mention code LSRTV10. You can get a little bit of a discount and get your custom build quoted today. Let's head down to Full Throttle Victory Lane. I'm standing by with the driver of the number 88 machine. Another win for the Ford of Andrew Freitas. And Andrew, congratulations on the win, sporting some different colors this weekend in honor of Memorial Day and Memorial Day weekend. But it was the same kind of fighting spirit behind the wheel of that car. And in true fashion, they tried to make it interesting late, but not enough to the top of the 88.
Yeah, not really much to say in this race. I think Connor Horn, he's got something figured out with his package. He had it, and I don't know if he got speeding or what really happened down pit road. And then, we're just trying to stay in the lead. And, to be honest, you're kind of just putting your foot to the floor and turning left. So that's what this package is. And, I was just trying my best to do it. That late restart there with 1 to go, it was actually a hard decision whether to stay out or pit or what. We stayed out. We went into 1. We floored it. We went into 3, and it just started pushing up the track, so had to get out of it. But I think everybody behind me was in the same boat, and that's why we were able to close it out. But, a win's a win, and we'll definitely take it.
You certainly ended up making the right call. You stay out, and you go on to win this race by a pretty sizable gap. I think all things considered for the last lap there, it was going to be very difficult for McBride to get you. It was pretty close to the bumper into turn 3, but just didn't have enough race car to keep it down on the bottom, and you're able to cruise through to the race win in this one. You mentioned Connor, of course. He took the win in the All-Star race last week. Had a very good car, but it was a mistake on pit road for him. Actually made contact with another car. There was a wreck. Those 2 cars got tangled up, and then he ended up getting caught up in an incident a little bit later. It seems like, there are some weeks, and maybe it was one of them, where the 88 isn't the best car, but you're still able to find victory lane. How important is that, racing as the season gets later on, and, you're going to continue to build on the points margin, but at some point that 60 or maybe after tonight's 70 or so margin is going to get eliminated. What can you still learn, continuing to figure new things out with these cars and finding yourself in different situations with it?
Yeah, it always feels nice to win, so we're not going to push that out. And, we built up a big points lead. But for me, it's just, running these races is trying to get practice. I said it earlier in the year, and I've been shocked of how well I've done with this package. To me, it's really taken the NASCAR out. We're pretty much out there racing Indy cars, and the first 10 laps are flooring it. And for me, it's not very fun to get out there and practice like I did a lot last year. It's just not happening because I don't see the joy in it this year. So I guess for me, just coming out Monday, trying to learn stuff with this car because I'm not really practicing as much. I'll run one NAS this year compared to maybe three last year to really learn stuff. So to me, it's just trying to figure out, trying to find the fun back in these cars, and just kind of move on to what we can when the chase comes around if we do make it.
We will continue the ball rolling next week. A couple of weeks of action here back to back, Andrew. We certainly expect that the 88 is going to be in the conversation and a topic of it for the rest of the year. But you do find victory related once more on a Monday night here on LSR TV and the iRacing Esports Network, who makes it happen as always for the 88 team.
Yeah, just real quick before that, I just want to give a shout out to Connor Horn. He really, I mean, he's gonna get one of these eventually. He had a really good car. It was really fun, and I wish that caution didn't come out because Rhett was coming, and that was gonna be a good race for all these fans. So, big shout out to those two guys. Everybody at Aegis, David Washington, Dylan Jones, Eric Stanford, Kyle Cameron. I know I'm missing a ton of people, but all those guys over there. You guys for broadcasting. I got to watch last week. My internet was down. It was a great show. Love watching them back. All the drivers in the sports, all the fans here, and just real quick, want to say that 17 career wins in here. We're one away from Dwayne Vincent with 18, which is the all-time. So trying to chase that down and grab that crown.
We look forward to seeing if that happens on next Monday night. Andrew, it was a little bit of a longer race than normal this week, but again, we appreciate you giving us your time here post-race, and also we appreciate your support of the series. Congratulations on the win, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks so much, guys. Happy Memorial Day to everybody as well.
Came out on top tonight from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Another race win for the driver of the number 88 machine, Friedage, to victory lane once more. And Rhett McBride was very close. The one-lap shootout to the end maybe gave him a little bit of an extra shot. He was close it either way. He comes up 3/10 short when it's all said and done. Trackside with him is Justin.
Thank you very much. Rhett McBride joining us now, coming away second, just 3/10 back of the checker flag for Friedage. Rhett, talk to us about what happened and what was going through your mind as you were coming towards that one-lap shootout to decide the checker flag.
I was just trying to keep it smooth, hit my marks, and try to fall in there and see if I could get to his outside, but it was going to be hard to do. I think I used up my stuff getting around the 45 and the 67 there, that last run, when I finally got toward the end of the race where I needed to have saved some. I think he had me covered tonight. So I was finding some things in the middle of the track that were working earlier in the race, and I think if I could have held on my tires a little bit more in the beginning of that run, I could have made it interesting at the end. But gave it everything we had.
You definitely gave it everything you had. And before that caution, you were actually gaining about a car length each and every lap on Friedage by doing something similar to what we've seen the one-time race leader Connor Horn do. Ramp it down the racetrack, try and diamond down the circuit to the apex and get towards the bottom on the exit of 2 and 4. How did that feel compared to, of course, trying to run what everyone was doing tonight? Trying to run that bottom line and try and not allow any gaps and try and make sure the drivers behind were stuck in that dirty air. What was your perspective in terms of that?
Well, for me, I mean, I thought it was definitely quicker to run that way, but when you run that tight on the bottom, that tight of a line, you're binding up that front a little bit more. And I felt like if I could lay it, if I could roll it in a little straighter on the high side and kind of late apex it and turning down the track helped too. It was able to save that right front a little bit more. So that was kind of it. The dirty air, I mean, you really, after about 15 laps, you're having to kind of play with the throttle anyway. So dirty air, if you're not trying to get too greedy, it wasn't that big of a deal. So, I was trying to save the right front more than anything, and that seemed to help, especially in 1 and 2. 3 and 4 was a little bit tricky because it just gets a little tight up there anyway, but it was great in 1 and 2.
So, of course, with this, we see the package move its way to the first time in the series' history for the next race to Pocono. What do you expect to see at Pocono based on what you might have done so far in terms of testing? What's your expectations really for what will be a tough race for 75 laps at the Tricky Triangle?
It's it's a lot going on at Pocono with this package. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of this package at all, but it is what it is, so we have to run it. But I've raced this package at Pocono before, and there's a lot of things you can do there, more so than a place like Charlotte. So, but it's like anywhere else, you know. If you're stuck in dirty air, you just got to be smart about when you decide to try to make moves and things like that. And it's all about saving your right front. So I'm sure it'll be more of the same, just at a bigger track.
Now, before we let you go, is there anyone you want to thank or anything you want to mention before we let you go here tonight?
For sure, I want to thank the Riverwatch Brewery for sponsoring us, and all my guys at Steel Horse Racing. Jonathan, I think he couldn't make it tonight. His one of his newborn was up and being very vocal tonight, so it looked like he had dad duty tonight. So I hate that he wasn't here. But Thomas and I worked well tonight during the race, and so I want to thank all the guys at Steel Horse Racing, Jason and Gael and all the guys, Don. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks to you guys up in the booth. I appreciate it. Do a fantastic job on the broadcast.
Thank you very much for the time, Rhett. Congratulations on the second place in the team's 2-3 finish for Steel Horse. You also led 7 laps this evening.
Thank you, Justin. Take care, man.
You too. That was Rhett McBride, who came away in second tonight. As Thomas J. George, his teammate, came just behind him. Evan, standing by with him.
It was a good result when this one was all said and done for the driver of the number 9 machine, Thomas George, coming on with a third-place finish tonight from Charlotte Motor Speedway. Thomas, congratulations. It is a good result, I suppose, all things considered. Half the cars that took part in that last lap dash didn't get to the end in one piece. Just tell us about your night, kind of starting on the cusp of being a front runner, and once you guys were able to get up there, you were kind of in contention throughout.
Yeah, first half, I guess third of the race or whatever, since 50-50-50 kind of deal. I would decide to see what it was going to be like. I mean, Ren and I pretty much figured, you know what, we got to just take it easy here and then see what our cars are like. And then once we got to, I'd say lap 45, lap 50, top 5, just kind of start pulling away from everybody else. And Ren and I just happened to be in that little trio, or not trio, but that area. And we kind of knew, you know what, we can go ahead and try something different. And then we obviously were the first ones to pit. And I thought that, I wasn't sure about the fuel situation, but I thought we could go to the end there. And we have pulled out a really big gap on Connor, who got caught up in that wreck. That kind of, I didn't want to see happen, not just for him, but just strategy wise, because we had pulled out to probably at least a 10-second lead on Andrew or something around there. And I thought if it stayed green once the tires had evened out, I thought that was a race winning move if it stayed green. So that I didn't want to see that. And then from there on, once that came out, we kind of just had to play it by what we could. And that not the last restart, but the one before, where, man, this package just doesn't have enough power to it for me. It's hard to drive it and save your tires and try to fight people that, you know, are trying to go to the front because it's just so wide open. But can't really complain too much.
You end up with the podium. How bad was it there at the end? Obviously, tires were so important. You had I think it was an early 3 or 4 lap run at the start of this race. And because of that, even with that short of a run, drivers still wanted to come down and get 4 fresh tires. So you talk about a long run to the end. Everybody but one lone driver decided to come to stay out. Obviously, track position key when you're only racing for that final 1.5 miles. How bad was it there? Did you feel like maybe you had a shot at anything, or did you just kind of be thankful to hang on to what you had?
That last, I don't remember when the last caution before that one was. I think it was 35 to go or something like that. I don't remember top of my head, but that run really kind of messed it up because as the sun was gone and the nighttime came around, the car just started pushing so hard, and then the 67 and the 45 just throwing it into the corner there, and I mean, just burning their stuff up, and it was forcing me to have to burn my stuff up, and it started getting to a point where you couldn't really try and pass somebody under the bottom unless you just got so aggressive, and you had to be on the right line. And this package just, if you get behind somebody and you get in their wake, it just pushes so much. At that point, it was just like crud. I mean, I've got nothing. In the closing laps there, I knew I had nothing left other than if we got a late race restart, which we did. But even then, I knew unless I timed the restart just right, there was nothing I could do. I mean, these cars take too long to get wound up, and even then, I don't think the tires I had left were good enough to actually win. So, getting closer. Just got to find a way to finish it off. But I mean, hey, good points tonight. Can't really complain too much, and take it to Pocono.
Your third top 5 of the season will maintain your positioning in the top 10 in the championship. Well safe to qualify into the playoffs this season, which I suppose is the ultimate goal for the course of the regular season. I know you mentioned Pocono. That's going to be another new experience with this package. Have you had any time on track to test it out, or is that what the next week's going to be dedicated to?
I ran a race there a couple weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago when they first put in this aero package. So I have some idea of how the car is going to drive, but I mean, obviously a couple months from then to now, they may have changed the setup or something. It's hard to say, but I have an idea. I mean, I feel like it's just going to drive like this track. I mean, it's going to be this package. It can make for great racing, but for some of us, for me anyway, I mean, it is what it is. It's what we got to race. I just would have preferred a little bit more horsepower to help kind of, separate the field just a little bit. But I mean, I'm sure for the audiences, it's a great battle to watch, and we just have to race in. Just we're now dealt the cards we are. But I mean, I will say it's a good thing. I mean, I was concerned with this package when it first came out, but I mean, I was running top 5, top 10, and competing for wins before it became this, and I'm still up there along with, my teammates. So it's definitely the driver. It's not necessarily the car. So that's at least a good sign.
It makes you feel good as well with the podium result tonight. Thomas, we'll let you bounce out of here again. We appreciate your time. Thanks for racing in the series. Congrats on the good result, and we'll see what the Pocono Mountains have for us next Monday.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for broadcasting.
Third place finisher tonight in the Charlotte 225. Big thanks to all of our top finishers for sticking around and chatting your race with our Andrew Freitas, Rick McBride, who comes home second, and Thomas J. George, who finishes in the number 3 spot. And all in all, Justin, I don't think we saw a ton out of the ordinary tonight. I think we saw what we expected to see. Of course, it is always interesting when you do get that late race yellow and a dash to the end of the race. I still think Freitas had this one won up to that point anyways, and we look forward to Pocono next Monday night.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be something where, honestly, I'm not sure what I'm expecting for Pocono for this race, because from what I've heard, it's going to be nuts. It's going to be fairly nuts. It's a very wide racetrack, for one, and with the way these cars have been able to draft, we might see drivers trying to fan their way out, similar to IndyCar, down those straightaways to try and keep position. It's going to be very unpredictable. It could be a very chaotic 75-lapper.
And we hopefully will see you with us then. Until we get out to round number 12 of the season, that is it for us here tonight from Charlotte. Is round number 11 falls into our rear view mirror. Of course, I want to say thanks to all the people behind the scenes at LSR TV who make these broadcasts possible, and for your broadcast team tonight. For myself, Evan Pistoko, for Justin Prince and Brett Wheeler downstairs, I want to thank you for tuning in and congratulate Andrew Freitas. He's got a big opportunity coming up in 1 week's time to tie the all-time full throttle wins record. That race coming to you from the Pocono Raceway on June the 3rd. It is a 9 o'clock Eastern start. Every race of the 2019 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series is powered by Sim Racers for Mental Health, and it can be found right here on LSR TV, the iRacing Esports Network. Until next time, good night from Charlotte.